democracy for governance in the agrarian nation, that the citizens pursue happiness in their rural livelihood. He promoted agricultural livelihood. He also thought that is the way to connect with the gods, by touching the ground. From New York, Alexander Hamilton envisioned the manufacturing nations with global trade that maintained central role in the federal government. While Jefferson wants to have a democracy, Alexander Hamilton wants to control. So these strategic thinking and policy orientations were influenced by the colonists and the pilgrims who came to America from Europe. The colonists who searched for wealth and power were realists in Yorktown, Virginia. They came to find resources. It's just like a colonist came. They were called colonists, and they are realists. They wanted to make more money. So they came, and those ideas were influenced Hamilton. And while Hamilton has these ideas, he was pretty much influenced and galvanized by the entrepreneurial zeal and determination by colonists, because they wanted to be wealthy. Jefferson, on the other hand, who was evidently sympathetic to idealistic and spiritual-minded pilgrims, promoted religious freedom and democracy. And pilgrims came from Europe to escape from the religious persecution. So when you look at this colonist and the pilgrims experience, which we call the American experience, seems to reverberate around Hamilton's capitalistic economic system and Jefferson's political democracy. Yet, both founding fathers agreed that trade brings peace and unity. So even though this trade brings peace and unity, it was not an American idea. It is not unique to America. The purpose-driven American philosophy that trade for peace is also has the background or the history in China as well. Motives for trade also leads to war and conflicts, not only to peace. Like the mercantile colonist powers in Europe, Chinese rulers dispatched commercial envoys not necessarily to conquer other lands, but to search for knowledge and national treasures. Almost 100 years before Christopher Columbus discovered America, Chinese Muslim admiral Sheng Shi came to Sri Lanka in 1405, even almost 100 years before Portuguese came into Sri Lanka. Why he came to Sri Lanka? He wanted to take the tooth relic of Buddha, which you now have in Kandy. Admiral fails. This was 1405. Then what ensued was, Admiral came back to Sri Lanka in 1410, led to a conflict between Ming dynasty and the kingdom of Kotte, the current day Sri Jayawardenepura. The war was to stop piracy in high seas and to acquire the tooth relic of Buddha. With thousands of sailors, the admiral broke through the capital of Kotte and captured the king-bearer Alekeswara and his queen and the other notable in 1411. The Admiral Sheng took them as prisoner to China and returned them in 1414 with the Chinese puppet nominee to the throne in Sri Lanka, who would be quickly eliminated as Sri Lanka became unified. King Parakambahu VI became the king in 1411. So the most important thing in this episode in Sri Lankan history was, one aspect is that Admiral Cheng's voyage was trade, as he exchanged valuable Chinese metal and coins for other local commodities. His respect for local cultures and religions was displayed as the Admiral reportedly made offering to the Buddhist temple in Adams Peak, which means Sri Father, come there, and to Islamic god Allah, is nearby Kovil, near the bottom of the Sri Father. In 1411, the trade envoy also erected a trilingual stone tablet in Chinese, Persian and Tamil in gold, with the message to the world invoking, this is what he said in this tablet, the stone tablet, which you have it at the museum in Colombo, matter of fact. It says, the blessing of the Hindu deities for a peaceful world built on trade, according to Robert Kaplan. So, Sri Lanka's trade goes back to many centuries. Even America was founded. That century accelerated our linkages with China. The Chinese legacy has continued in a new form since Sri Lanka gained independence from the British in 1948. Soon after the founding of People's Republic of China, the mainland China, in 1948, the newly independent island established the first bilateral agreement on rubber price with China in 1952. After 1957, formal diplomatic relations began to expand. The complement of the Bandaranaike Memorial International Conference Hall, BMICH, in 1973, which is prior to the 1976 Non-Aligned Movement Summit in 1976, was a landmark of friendship between Sri Lanka and China. Since then, several heads of states have visited each other. What you see is Chairman Mao Zedong and Prime Minister Sirimao Bandaranaike. Then President Premadasa was gifting an elephant to China, and this is the President Mahinda Rajapaksa visiting China. He, matter of fact, visited many times any other former head of his state of Sri Lanka to China. So, since then, Sri Lanka having this better relation with China, especially with President Mahinda Rajapaksa, in China provided military, financial and diplomatic support to Sri Lanka to defeat terrorism and to win the 25-year-old Elam War, which some of your leaders and colleagues were involved in. In the meantime, China's relationship with the other Asian countries like Pakistan, Burma and the Maldives Islands also improves to advance its national security and strategic economic interest for China. So, Chinese strategy of peaceful rising is explicitly geo-economic. They explicitly said is geo-economic rather than geopolitics or military purposes. It is intended to address China's local development needs and to meet increasingly demand for resources and oil, which flows from Middle East and Africa through the Indian Ocean to Chinese ports. It's coming from here and goes all the way to China. Deng Xiaoping, who you see here, is a noted Chinese economic reformer. He described his strategic statecraft of peaceful development as if he were philosopher come leader Lao Shu of modern China. This is what he said. Observe calmly, secure our position, cope with affairs calmly, hide our capacities and bide our time. Be good at maintaining a low profile, never claim leadership. Make some contribution, which they are actually doing around the world, and you see it in Sri Lanka in their development effort. So the latest evolution of the Chinese plan of action is famously known as the string of pearls naval strategy. Sri Lanka plays a significant role as China has invested on the island, including the Hambantota harbour right here, and also the Lotus Tower in Colombo, which is under construction, which would be seen from here to New Delhi. When you see this one, Sri Lanka, China through Sri Lanka said in a message to India, we have the tallest tower in South Asia. Indian leaders in New Delhi expressed concerns over Sri Lanka's new strategic partnership with Beijing as China developed a district of pearls in Chittagong, Bangladesh, which you see here, and Coco Island and Sittwe in Burma, Hambantota in Sri Lanka, Guada in Pakistan, Marao in Maldives Islands, and Seychelles. Right here, Marao, Hambantota, Sittwe, Chittagong, and Godwa. New Delhi began to expect its own outreach to Madagascar, Mauritius, and Seychelles. Right here, Mauritius and Madagascar. They have not the military presence, but the telecommunications installations on those countries. Mainly, India wants to protect its ships as piracy became a major issue in the Indian Ocean, especially in near Somalia and Djibouti, and also